I came here to do two things only: drink some beer and learn some bass. Looks like we're almost out of beer. What's up, my fellow bass players, musicians, and music lovers? My name is Devin. I started learning bass about 4 months ago, and I definitely want to say I think I picked it up pretty quickly. Part of that is because I really loved the instrument before I knew how to play it. I like the deep sounds, the melody behind the track, etc.
Some final thoughts before we jump into it. I just want to say I hope this video is helpful to you. I hope it's informational. I think it's interesting because some of these concepts overlap with courses I've taken or YouTube tutorials I've seen. So, there's credit to go to those and the courses I've taken, and I'll share the names at some point and give credit. And I haven't seen them in any kind of video or tutorial. So I think that's interesting, and that's why I'm sharing them because I believe that these are one steps from like very beginner to intermediate, and the way we learn in the beginning is just to build a foundation. After that, it's loosening up and learning how to move around better. I believe that even the most advanced bassists and instructors and people creating YouTube tutorials, etc., probably miss these things because they've been playing for a long time and they either forget about them or they just got past that point where it was important to them. So that's my goal. I'm showing the in between, the things that I found that helped from very beginner moving towards intermediate. Beginning, I'm going to just create like a part one video with the first two because I think the first two are most important, and we'll see where it goes from there. So if you'd like it, if you think anything's interesting, or it helped you, or you disagree with it, or if you hate it, drop a comment. I want to hear everything. The first concept I'm going to talk about is the fretting hand technique. I know if anyone's a beginner, you know the frustration. The main point is my fretting hand over time since I started has kind of changed positions and even my fingers, down to my fingers, how I use them. No one ever talks about it. So I'm really curious to understand if other people saw this happen. So let's talk about our fretting hand and Einstein here and see if he has a good fretting technique. When we start playing bass, one of the first things we learn is fretting. And we kind of learn with our fingers flat like this. I think that one of the reasons they begin teaching that way is to help develop a foundation of really getting to know where the strings are. It got to a point where I was not getting any faster, and I said there has to be something different that advanced players are doing. I looked at some videos and some things helped, like loosening up and putting less pressure on the strings. But I also learned these things, which I found most important. If you want to be faster and play efficiently, you want your hand to be able to move freely up and down the fretboard. And you want to be able to kind of reach up and reach down to get to the strings you want to. This is the motion I'm going to show you. Moving your hand from this point to this point. That is so crucial, I found out. From here, get the lower strings, and up here, get the higher strings. Know it's in a position where your counterweight is effective, and just let the bass stay. And then pull it back and just kind of put your hand like this and bring it in. Right now, it doesn't matter if you're higher up or lower up. I'd stay somewhere in the center. And then what you want to do is you want to kind of reach around like this. Kind of reach around like you're grabbing a baseball bat. Even if you do this, it's almost the exact motion. Like I'm putting my hand in, I'm wrapping my hand. So baseball. Once I found out about this position, this is when I became a lot faster. I think my speed doubled overnight when I found out. Because the critical point here is, okay, I have movement of my hand beyond just this flat technique. You want to try to keep your wrist straight like that, but still, there's going to be this movement. So it's really keeping your arms straight. You're getting your hands at the higher strings, middle strings, the lower strings. My hands are not huge. They're not big. Another benefit once I learned this is I figured out how people actually reach so far. I started to become able to play 4 frets at a time without moving my hand. So try the technique. Try this. It's kind of like you can also look at it as like a swoop up. You know, so give it a try. I think it's very beneficial, especially if you're a beginner. If you're in your first month or so, and you're still kind of learning just to get notes out from different frets, you know, still focus on that, but definitely start practicing this too because it's going to make you able to move around the fretboard so much quicker. Just for fun, here's a video of me probably day 1 or 2 after I got my bass trying to play Seven Nation Army, and you can see how much I was struggling. The next topic that I'm going to discuss is something that everyone either loves or hates. It's scales. Learning scales can be very tedious and boring, but learning them also has significant value. So along the way, I did find some ways to make learning them a little bit more interesting. And I've also found a way to make memorizing them easier. I don't think I've seen that in any bass videos, but I have seen it in piano videos. And by the way, piano is kind of a hint for another video that I'd make. For those who are beginners or are not really familiar with scales or haven't gotten into them yet, they're basically just a group of notes that work well together. A good way to think about it is on the piano. So, for example, D major scale would include D major, F major, and A major. And D minor would include D, F flat, and G. My issue with scales when I started was I thought it was extremely complicated puzzle. So looking at a piano here is very similar to the bass, and I think the piano is the best visual image to kind of understand music theory. Um, as you'll see here, this only includes the 7 major notes: C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Um, and then that would repeat on the piano. So basically that's the octave. You have this section, that's one octave, then the next section is the other octave. So the octaves are kind of like your strings. But I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Learning scales, not that I'm getting into it too much, is very boring and it's kind of tricky in the beginning because you don't know where to begin. What you can do is one, learn the main notes along some strings. So, for example, here's a diagram. I highly suggest if you start bass, you at least learn these notes first. This should be mirrored. It's really lefty, but so for example, on the E string, fret 3, you would have a G, fret 5 A, fret 7 B. So this is the simplest scale: G A B C D E F G A. Now, the reason it's good to learn this first is It'll help you navigate and it'll help you find the other notes. First started learning scales, I overcomplicated it, and I think a lot of people do. And I thought I had to know a lot of them to understand the fretboard, which is not true. Um, so let's just take a look at a simple scale. Let's say we want to start a pattern back further. We could take this B, and then this would be a C here, and we have a D here, we have an E, and we know this would be an F, kind of opposite of what I've shown before. And then we have a G, then it repeats A. Another example, say we wanted to start this C, um, we can go down. I added these in because I know what these are. So we can start at the C, and we can go to this D, then we would look for an E. There's an F here, so we know there's an E here. So we are C, D, E, F. We have a G here. And then down here we have an A. And then B and C. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. I know that's messy, but the point is to keep, not to teach you scales, but that's that's what it does for you. The, the real reason I have this 3D diagram up is because I wanted to show you the one of the simplest scales to remember, and it's one you can create on your own, and it's here. It's across the whole fretboard. So, and that's one big scale there. Usually, usually chords are stick within 3 or 4 frets, but for this sake, it's to help you memorize. So at fret 3 and 5 and 7, you can get all notes in. And when you remember all these notes, it does something very beneficial for you. It helps you find other notes. The other main point of all this, besides first creating your own simple scale, is I want to show you how to figure out chords and scales, and it's very simple. Figure out the scale. So if we have a C, we'd go 1, 2, 3, 4. That's an E. Then we go. We're, we're going to go 3, and I'll show you why. Now we have E. We'll go 1, 2, 3. So we know that a C major is C, E, G. Now the only difference between the next scale, which includes the minor, is going 4 steps. So we're still starting at our C, but we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and that lands us here. So we went 3 steps, but now we're going to go again 4 steps. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We're still ending at that G. So the C major has either, like we did in the beginning, C, E, and G, or it has the C, G flat, G. You can figure out any scale using this system. So let's take a look at them here. Okay, so the C major, starting with C, 1, 2, 3, 4, E, and that means we have to go 3 more steps. 1, 2, 3, now you're at G. F major. So we'd start here at the F. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the A. Then we should go 3. So we're at A. 1, 2, 3. Ignore this because the C is really over here. So we went 4 steps. All right, that wraps up some of the techniques I wanted to talk about. The main points here are scales are important, but can be difficult to learn. Starting simple can bring you further, faster, and there's ways to figure out scales without sitting and reading a book and trying to memorize them for weeks or months. And lastly, fretting hand technique. It's something that for me it changed over time, and it likely does for others, and it's not really talked about. This is my first video, so feel free to drop a comment um, on how you think I did. If there's things I could change or things that you liked, and I hope this is helpful. All right, I'll see you on the next one.